So, I want you to picture something for a second. Right now, all across the world, there are these like brilliant, highly paid executives sitting in these high stakes
Oh
meetings.
yeah, the classic boardroom scene.
Exactly. And they're actively making decisions that could just, well, completely cripple their companies.
Right.
But the craziest part is they're doing it with this huge smile on their faces, just nodding thoughtfully at these sleek color-coded dashboards that they, if we're being honest, have absolutely no idea how to read.
It is a terrifying reality,
Mhm.
honestly. I mean, we are literally watching decades of hard-earned leadership experience just get neutralized in an
They
instant.
get wiped out.
Just because someone is, afraid to raise their hand in a crowded room and say, like, hey,
Yeah.
I am totally lost on how this technology actually works.
Okay, let's unpack this because that fear, that exact hesitation, is what we're dismantling in today's deep dive.
Oh.
We are going to prove to you that thriving in the AI era, whether you're, I don't know, running a Fortune 500 company or just managing a small team, it doesn't require a degree in computer science.
No, not at all. You really don't need to write a single line of Python to future-proof your career.
Right. You just need to master the kind of lost art of asking the right question.
Which brings us to our source material for today. It's this really fantastic piece of writing from J.D. Parashar.
Oh, yeah. The founder and director of Rethynk AI Innovation and Research.
That's the one. He wrote this article titled The CEO's Guide to Asking the Right AI Questions. And, I mean, it is essentially a survival manual.
A survival manual for leaders who feel like they're kind of losing their grip on the steering wheel of their own organizations.
Exactly. But, before we get into, like, what you should actually ask, we really have to talk about why these conversations are failing so spectacularly right now.
Yeah, the text diagnoses this incredibly uncomfortable dynamic. Like, leaders are basically forced to sign off on these massive technological integrations that they just cannot fully grasp.
Right. And because they lack that fundamental understanding of the architecture, they lean on crutches.
Like vendor assurances.
Oh, heavily on vendor assurances, which, let's be real, are naturally designed to sell you software, right?
Yeah.
Not to protect your business.
Of course. Or they rely on these technical summaries that are basically written in a different language.
Yeah, and the real danger is that these boardroom discussions tend to polarize into two extreme traps.
I see this all the time. On one hand, you have the glossy, overly simplified presentation.
The magic box trap.
Exactly. The vendor, or maybe the internal champion, treats the AI like a magic box. So like data goes in, profit comes out, look at this upward trending green chart.
Right, which completely hides all the structural assumptions.
Yeah.
And the potential failure points.
Yeah. Then on the other hand, you have the overly technical trap.
Oh, where the engineers just completely hijack the meeting.
Yes. The specialized jargon gets so deep, and the leadership perspective is completely locked out of the conversation because they literally do not speak the vocabulary.
What is fascinating here is the silent consequence of those two extremes.
Yeah.
I mean, if a discussion is either too superficial or too dense.
Leadership can't challenge the underlying mechanics.
Exactly. They cannot stress test the assumptions. And when the executive team stops probing, they just stop leading.
Wow. Yeah, the actual strategy of the company just quietly shifts into the hands of whoever controls the algorithms.
Precisely. Whether that is the IT department or an outside vendor or just, the path of least resistance for operational convenience, the executives basically devolve into rubber stamps for the tech.
It really reminds me of buying a multi-million-dollar commercial building.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Like, if you're making an investment of that scale, you aren't just going to look at a glossy marketing brochure with pictures of the sunset hitting the lobby windows.
Right, because that tells you absolutely nothing about the structural integrity.
Exactly. But at the same time, you wouldn't demand the raw architectural blueprints if you don't know how to read them.
No, you'd be totally lost.
So what do? You hire an inspector. You ask targeted questions about the foundation. I mean, you don't need to know the exact chemical composition of the concrete to ask, hey, did you pour this concrete on a swamp?
That is a brilliant way to frame it.
Yeah.
Really. Because in a context of AI, that swamp is the training data.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, if a model is trained on flawed or outdated or just irrelevant data, the foundation sinks. The outputs will be fundamentally broken regardless of how elegant the software looks on the surface.
Right, so you don't need to know how to code a neural network to ask where the data came from or, how frequently it's updated.
Exactly. You are interrogating the safety of the structure without like mixing the cement yourself.
So how do you actually reclaim that control? Because the guide lays out this really comprehensive framework, and it all starts with rooting the tech to actual business reality.
Yes. The very first thing you have to interrogate is strategic alignment.
Which means asking what,
You
exactly?
have to ask, like, what specific strategic objective does this initiative support? Which exact business decision is it going to improve?
Because AI can't just exist as this shiny side project to make the company look innovative for a press release.
Right. If the deployment doesn't clearly strengthen your competitive position or solve a defined operational bottleneck, it's just experimentation.
Yep.
It isn't strategy.
Okay, I hear you, but let me push back on this for a second.
Go for it.
Isn't experimentation exactly what the market demands right now? I mean, it's a total gold rush. Everyone is just trying to figure out how these tools even work.
It's true.
So if we force every single department to prove strict ROI and perfect strategic alignment before they even touch a new model, aren't we going to stifle innovation? Like, the competitors who just dive in and break things are going to outpace us while we just sit around drafting alignment documents.
Yeah, that is the exact tension every C-suite is wrestling with today. Paralysis by analysis is a very real threat.
Right.
But there's a massive difference between, localized sandbox testing and enterprise-wide deployment.
Okay.
The author actually addresses this directly in another piece referenced in our source material. It's brilliantly titled, AI Without Strategy is Just Expensive Automation.
Oh, expensive automation. I like that.
Yeah, letting your team play with the tool to build basic literacy, that's fine. But when you are spending millions to integrate a system into your core operations,
If it isn't tied to a hard business goal.
you're just spending a fortune to do the wrong things faster.
That is such a sharp critique. It's like putting a rocket engine on a golf cart. Sure, it goes incredibly fast, but you are still just driving around a golf course. You aren't winning a Formula One race.
Precisely. And that ties directly into the next critical area of inquiry, which is value realization.
Right, because once you tie the tool to a strategy, you have to establish exactly how you will measure success.
Yes. What is the baseline performance right now?
Like if you implement an automated customer service agent.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to ask, how long does a human currently take to resolve a ticket?
Right.
What is the current customer satisfaction score?
Because if you don't know that baseline, how will you ever definitively prove if the AI is actually an improvement?
You can't. And without those hard metrics, these initiatives just devolve into perpetual pilot projects.
Oh, the endless pilot project.
Yeah, they become these expensive science fairs that never scale and never deliver a tangible return on investment.
All right, so let's say we've bulletproofed the strategy. We know our baselines. We know our metrics. The foundation is solid.
Okay.
But here's where the rubber meets the road. What happens when this system is actually unleashed into the wild to make real decisions?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the conversation has to shift away from pure technology and heavily into governance.
Governance, okay.
You need to map out the decision architecture, like which decisions are you merely using the AI to support, and which decisions are you allowing it to completely automate.
That distinction feels massive.
Oh, it is everything. You have to define exactly where human judgment must remain the final authority.
And practically speaking, how are overrides handled?
Yes, exactly. If the system flags a massive anomaly in, say, a global supply chain order, does it automatically halt production? Or does it just trigger an alert to a human manager to make the call?
Right, because AI is incredible at influencing decisions, but the authority over those decisions has to be clearly defined before the system is even turned on.
Absolutely.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's look at the worst-case scenario. Say you have an AI managing your dynamic pricing model or assessing major financial risks.
Okay.
It makes a recommendation, the company acts on it, and it fails spectacularly. It costs the company tens of millions of dollars. Based on Parashar's framework, who actually takes the fall?
Wow.
Because historically, right, if a piece of enterprise software glitched, you just blamed the software vendor and demanded a patch. Can leadership still do that?
Absolutely not. The leadership takes the fall.
Right.
Yes. That is the fundamental reality of the risk and responsibility landscape we are entering. AI introduces entirely new categories of operational, reputational, and regulatory risk that traditional business structures simply are not built for.
Wow. So you cannot outsource your accountability to an algorithm.
You really can't. If your system hallucinates a disastrous financial strategy and you act on it, the executive team is the one standing in front of their shareholders and the regulators, not the vendor. not the software.
Wait, let's pause on that word hallucinates for a second because that gets thrown around a lot in the media.
It does, yeah.
Why does an AI hallucinate a bad financial strategy? People tend to think these tools are just giant, infallible encyclopedias of facts.
Oh, that is the most dangerous misconception out there right now. Large language models, for example, they are not databases of facts.
Right.
They are predictive text engines. They are mathematically calculating the most probable next word in a sequence based on the vast amounts of text they were trained on.
So they aren't looking up the truth.
No, they don't know what is true and what is false. They only know what sounds highly plausible.
Okay.
So when a system confidently presents a completely fabricated financial projection or cites a legal precedent that doesn't exist, it isn't maliciously lying to you.
Right.
It is just generating a highly probable sequence of words that happens to be entirely divorced from reality.
So it's essentially a brilliant, silver-tongued intern who will just confidently make up an answer on the spot rather than admit they don't know something.
Exactly. And you would never let that intern make a multi-million-dollar trade without extreme oversight and an escalation process.
No, you'd fire them if they did.
Right. That is why the executive must ask, what are the specific failure modes of this model? How do we ensure it complies with industry regulations? Who owns the outcome when it breaks?
Because ignoring these questions doesn't just hurt quarterly margins, it creates an existential threat for the entire enterprise.
A massive existential threat.
Okay, so we have the strategy locked down, we've mapped out the decision tree, and we've put guardrails around the hallucinations and the regulatory risks. The system is flawless on paper.
Sounding good.
But there is a fatal flaw most executives completely overlook at this stage. What if the human beings on the factory floor or, in the sales department just flat out refuse to use it?
Ah, yes. This is the culture clash. It is the human element of organizational readiness.
Because you can buy the most sophisticated machine learning model on the market, perfectly aligned with your business goals.
But technology without readiness rarely delivers value. Leaders have to interrogate the reality on the ground. Like, do our teams actually trust the outputs this machine is giving them? Do they even understand how to interpret the data?
Right, and if they don't trust it, they will actively work around it. I mean, I see this all the time. People will run the new AI program because management told them to, and then they'll quietly open up their personal Excel spreadsheet to do the actual work the way they've always done it.
Yeah, exactly. There's a brilliant insight highlighted in our source material from a commenter named Aditya D.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
He points out that we focus way too heavily on the technology itself in these discussions, but the real impact depends entirely on the business problem and the people executing the work.
The author of our guide even wrote a separate piece arguing that AI transformation has to start with culture, not technology.
Yes, you have to ask, are our internal processes actually structured to absorb these new insights?
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Think about it like buying a state-of-the-art fitness tracker.
Ooh, good analogy.
It monitors your heart rate variability, it analyzes your sleep architecture, and it provides this incredible predictive data about your daily recovery.
Right.
But if you don't actually change your behavior, if you still eat junk food at midnight and refuse to go to bed earlier, that tracker is completely useless. It's just an expensive piece of jewelry.
That is the perfect parallel. The tracker gave you the intelligence, but you lack the organizational readiness to restructure your daily routine to act on it.
Exactly.
If an AI gives your sales team predictive insights on which clients are about to churn, but your team is still just cold calling down an alphabetical list because that is their deeply ingrained habit, well, the entire multi-million-dollar investment is completely wasted.
Which brings us to the ultimate shift. By asking these hard questions about strategy, baselines, decision authority, regulatory risk, and culture, the role of the leader fundamentally changes.
It has to change.
You stop being a passive tech approver. You evolve into what the text calls an intelligence steward.
I think that phrase perfectly captures the new mandate. An intelligence steward isn't a coder. They are a guardian of accountability.
A guardian of accountability.
Yes. They are an architect of responsible intelligence. It requires a systemic shift in how we approach management entirely.
And the text outlines a really practical roadmap for this evolution. And it starts with relentless anchoring in business outcomes.
Meaning, whenever a meeting veers into the technical weeds about how cool a new model feature is,
the steward pulls it back and asks, how does this improve our core product or lower our operational costs?
right, and they demand transparency. When a vendor presents a black box algorithm, meaning a system where the internal decision-making process is hidden, The steward doesn't just nod and accept it.
They ask to understand the data sources. They demand to know the model's limitations.
Because if you don't understand how a system is arriving at its conclusions, you cannot responsibly deploy it.
Right. You also have to institutionalize governance. That means setting up continuous monitoring. You don't just launch an AI and walk away.
Oh, definitely not. You monitor it for model drift. You have to ensure that the outputs today are as accurate and compliant as they were 6 months ago when you launched it.
And finally, you have to actively build AI literacy across the entire leadership team to remove that fear we talked about at the very beginning.
Which is exactly where the consulting world is heading. The source mentions that Rethynk AI offers services specifically tailored to this.
Things like CXO, AI literacy, and decision architecture design.
Yeah, the broader market has realized that procuring the software is actually the easy part. Building the leadership capability to responsibly manage it is the real bottleneck.
You know, there was a fascinating comment left on the original article by a user going by the name MentTech.
Oh, right. I remember that one.
They asked a phenomenal question. If you had to pick just one question or one specific area that every CEO must ask about before approving an AI strategy, what is the absolute most critical?
A great question.
The author didn't actually reply in the thread, but I want to put you on the spot. If you had to pick the ultimate linchpin from everything we've discussed, what is it?
Ooh, that is a tough one.
I honestly lean towards strategic alignment. If the AI doesn't support the core business strategy, nothing else matters. You are just setting money on fire.
Okay, I hear that.
The risk, the governance, the cultural readiness, it is all
Mhm.
completely irrelevant if the tool doesn't actually serve the company's ultimate goal.
I see your logic. And from a pure business growth perspective, you are right. But if I am forced to pick the single most critical element based on the sheer existential threat to the organization,
Yeah.
I have to go with risk and responsibility.
Really? Over strategy?
Yes, because this raises an important question about survival.
Yeah,
You can survive a misaligned strategy.
I guess that's true.
Companies waste money on failed software pilots every single day. You just take the financial hit, rewrite the budget, and move on.
Sure.
But if you deploy an automated decision system without establishing risk frameworks, and that system hallucinates a catastrophic error that breaks regulatory compliance, triggers a massive lawsuit, or causes a stock plunge,
Oh, wow.
you haven't just lost a pilot budget, you might lose the entire company. Governance is the shield that protects the enterprise from fatal automated mistakes.
Wow. Okay, that is a highly compelling argument.
Yeah.
Like, a bad strategy hurts your quarterly earnings, but unmitigated risk can trigger a catastrophic business-ending failure. It really highlights how interconnected these questions are. You really cannot afford to skip any part of this interrogation.
No, you can't. Leadership in the age of AI isn't about having all the technical answers. The technology is evolving far too rapidly for any single person to know everything.
Right.
True leadership is defined by asking the questions that reveal truth, uncover hidden risks, and clarify opportunity. The machines will generate the insights at scale, but only human judgment can ensure those insights actually serve a meaningful, safe purpose.
And that is the core takeaway we want you to leave with today. You do not have to be a CEO to use this.
Not at all.
If you are a freelancer assessing a new generative tool to speed up your workflow, or maybe a mid-level manager looking at a new software integration for your team, use this exact same framework.
Ask yourself, what is the strategic value of this tool for my day-to-day work?
How will I measure if it is actually saving me time? What specific tasks am I letting it handle? And what is my exposure if it completely fabricates an answer?
Right, you have the power to be the intelligent steward of your own career.
It is all about maintaining your agency in a world that is incredibly eager to automate it away.
Yes, asking the right questions ensures that the intelligence strengthens your capabilities, rather than bypassing your judgment entirely.
We want to leave you with one final kind of provocative thought to mull over. We noticed among the other articles this author has published, there is one with a fascinating title.
Ah, yes. Competitive advantage is now algorithmic.
Think about the implications of that. If competitive advantage is increasingly driven by algorithms, and we reach a point in the near future where these models become completely commoditized.
Meaning every business, big or small, has access to the exact same high-level artificial intelligence.
Right, then the algorithms themselves cancel each other out.
They are no longer a unique advantage. They are just the baseline cost of entry to participate in the market.
Exactly, which means if the playing field is entirely leveled by the technology, Will the only remaining competitive advantage in business literally just be the human ability to ask better questions?
That is a profound thought. As the answers become instantaneous and universally available, the quality of the human inquiry becomes the ultimate differentiator.
It's something to think about the next time you find yourself in a dimmed boardroom, nodding.